Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be talking about a controversial topic, whether or not you should be a meta slave. So I'm going to start a new series about different sort of controversial topics or hot topics in the League community, and I'm going to try to produce maybe one or two of these videos per week, and I'm going to work towards trying to do at least some kind of guide every day, either an analysis of changes on the PvE, or controversial topics, or just other aspects of how to improve your game. So I'm going to try to give you many more guides much more often. So if this is your first time to the channel, you can access the Google Doc in the description. You can also find timestamps to help you jump around to different parts that you might find interesting. But let's go ahead and get in here. So first of all, should you be a meta slave? I'm going to talk really quickly about what a meta slave is, what that means, how that applies to cognitive dissonance and profitable propaganda. That'll be a lot more understandable when I get down there, I promise you. And then should you be a meta slave after you know these things about what that term actually means and how it applies to gaming culture in League of Legends, and then how the concept of professionalism can help you gain a lot of elo and how that's related to meta slavery. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about this really quickly. So what is a meta slave? Okay, so meta is a Greek word that means beyond. Okay, so think of metaphysics. That's something that's beyond physics, which is typically religious in nature historically, but it could also be some deeper philosophies like you might find in Plato. Okay, so that's what meta means. Is that all it means is beyond, and it's it's the study of exterior forces that influence a system. So it's looking at, okay, here's a system of things. How does that actually work, and what's the grand strategy at play within that system? Okay, that's what meta means. It's beyond the system. It's the factors that influence the system. So in League of Legends, in a very loose sense, the meta would be the collection of champion abilities and their changes over time. So sort of the nerfs and buffs that champions have in relationship to the items, in relationship to various other aspects on the map, such as plants, tower health, the stats on Dragon and Baron. All of these things influence the meta. So they aren't like the meta themselves, because people usually use the meta to mean a collection of champions and strategies that are effective, but these are all factors that influence the meta. We're not going to be talking about that much here and like how that plays in. I actually have a video about the meta on the channel if you want to look at how those factors play in and influence the meta. I can reference that at the very end of the video if you want. But right now we're just talking about this concept of meta slave, what it means, and how that applies to your game. Okay, so in League, the meta itself has a very ambiguous meaning, and I've talked about this before on the stream. People use the term to mean both powerful and popular, when they're not necessarily the same thing. Some champions can be popular without being powerful, and some champions can be powerful without being popular. So, for example, Ezreal in the bot lane, about midway through the season, 7-7, 7-8, people were just playing him all over the place, and he had an extremely low win rate. So he was popular, but not very powerful statistically. Who else is another one? I mean, Thresh is another one that like perennially in lower elos, and that, you know, this gets into elos too. Some champions are very powerful in lower elos and not very powerful in higher elos, and so the meta really is varies a lot based on level of play. Like the meta for pro level play is not the same as the meta for challenger, master, diamond level play, and that's not the same as the meta for silver and bronze. So when people say like meta slave, that actually could mean a variety of different things, but for, you know, the intent of this video, I'm going to use the term to mean effective. So whatever is effective at a given elo, we're going to define that as the meta. Okay, so obviously it's a difficult, ambiguous term. That's the best way I'm going to use it, is the most effective strategies on any given patch. We're going to call that the meta. So things that have been established that, you know, or some combination of have been played or have been proven to be effective in a particular elo. Okay, so it's crucial that you understand that meta is not an opinion. People use it that way. Oh, that's meta, or this person just feels like that's meta. It is not an opinion. Okay, it is something. Meta effectiveness is something that you could quantify and measure statistically or rationally via looking at various abilities and items and theory crafting. It's not an opinion. It's things that are backed up by quantitative data. Some champions are better than other champions, and that's undeniable, statistically and in terms of analysis. I know I have this debate with people on stream all the time, but some champions are just straight up better than other champions on a given patch. That doesn't mean it's always been that way and it always will be that way. That just means that's the truth of the matter, is that some champions are just straight up better. You know, if someone wants to argue, well, I'm not going to get into specific champions because I know where someone's going to go, but this champion can be good. Okay, sure, there are exceptions, but we're talking about overall effectiveness among a very large population of the community. The majority of the community, is this effective? And that's something that can be measured quantitatively. All right. And so it's not something that's an opinion. It's not a grand scheme to sell skins. You know, some people have said, well, Riot, you know, crafts different, different changes. They can sell all these skins so much better than they had before. There are numerous instances where Riot does not do that. The skins team is on a completely different team from the balance team. These skins are planned, you know, much, much further in advance than balancing. I mean, a lot of these skins were probably approved and they started designing them 3 or 4 months in advance at least. And they design a whole event around it with a comic book and all that stuff. Now, it takes a lot of planning and design work to do that. So how are they going to predict what's going to be strong, you know, 6 patches from now? They're not scheming. They don't know what's going to happen 6 patches from now, right? Like, you know, who knew that Jungle Ezreal was going to be a thing like he is right now in high-level play? Who knew that, you know, various other champions rose to power really quickly? I mean, who knew that Jarvan would have risen so quickly to prominence from being relatively obscure for most of the season? Or Tristana. Like, there are some luminaries that predict these things, and I do predict quite a lot of things correctly. But Riot's, that's not their game. They're going to sell skins no matter what, so that's not a serious thing. And it's not random. It's not just, you know, some pro players just get in a room and say, okay, let's just say these champions are good. You know, it's actually what works, what's effective in a given meta. So pro players often help define these metas, and they do not play something because they enjoy it, okay? Sometimes they do, but they are professional, okay? And this is going to get a concept that I'm going to talk to here in a little bit. They're playing to win, okay? They're playing the thing that they think is going to give them the greatest probability to win. And sometimes they don't like it, right? So, you know, sometimes, I don't know Doublelift or what his exact product. I know he loves Vayne. Okay, I know Doublelift historically loves Vayne, but the coaches will not let him play that, okay? Right now, a lot of the time. So he loves that champion, but he's going to be forced to play whatever's going to give the best chance to win, because coaches and players are disciplined most of the time. They want to win, and they're willing to do just about whatever it takes in terms of composition within their capability. Some champions just straight up are not good on certain styles of champions, and some teams just work way better with certain strategies than others. So they will bend the meta a little bit to suit their style. So, for example, Fnatic in the EU, Reckless really was good on AD Kennen. It's a bizarre pick, but it just works for them. And so he went against the meta in many ways to play AD Kennen. You've got Huni. I always get Huhi and Huni mixed up, but I think it's Huni who is the Aurelian Soul Master, right? So he's very good at Aurelian Soul, and he gets it banned against him. So that, you know, it doesn't mean that everyone forever and always has to play like the best of the best champions. It just means that consistently among a large portion of the population, these strategies are the strongest right now. Okay, so Jarvan, Tristana in the pro scene, Kalista, Rakan, Thresh, Talia, Syndra, Orianna. You know, all of these champions, Maokai, all these champions are going to be strong in certain metas. And it varies from region to region as well. But it's just overall, what's the effectiveness, okay? But the core here is they don't play what they want. They don't necessarily play what they enjoy. They play what wins because they want to win, because that is their mentality. As a professional, they are playing to be as competitive as possible, all right? So why is meta enslavement for non-pro players? So why do people consider this like a bad thing? Like, okay, Jarvan's good on this patch. Why is it a bad thing if you want to play Jarvan? Or Tristana's really good on this patch. Why is it a bad thing if you want to play Tristana? Why are you a meta slave if you want to play Tristana or Rakan or Jarvan? Like, what are you enslaved by? Okay, so let's go ahead and just look at that concept really quick and how that plays into various psychological aspects of League. Okay, so I'm going to talk about cognitive dissonance and profitable propaganda. And I'll talk about cognitive dissonance, and I have a link for you here, where it's not going to be a huge psychology class. It's just a very important concept for League of Legends that we'll talk about in a minute. But I want to start here. Okay, it all starts with expectations. Okay, expectations for League players are ridiculous. Okay, I mean by league players for other league players, okay? It's one of the most unrealistic atmospheres ever. Just about. I mean, it's hard to imagine something that's much less realistic than this, right? So Silver 5 is the statistical average for all players. This is your average Joe player. This is the person who would be the equivalent of earning a median salary in the United States, okay? They're just the plumbers working. They are the, I don't really know what the median salary would be. It's the teachers, it's the plumbers, it's, you know, the nurses, some conglomeration of those things. Just your normal kind of, you know, blue collar, pretty good job type of thing. I guess a lot of those aren't really blue collar. They're, anyways, maybe that's a bad analogy. But look, it's average, okay? It's the average people. Our Silver 5. So if you just, you know, if you had 1 million people of League of Legends in a room and said, how many of you are Silver 5, you would have the most people raise their hand of anybody in that room. And if you said how many people, like, if you averaged out everyone in the room, it would probably average up to Silver 5, okay? Yet, many players consider Plat players to be low elo, okay? So that's low elo, that's bad, okay? So Silver 5 is not even technically low elo, that's average, okay? But now we're talking about Platinum players are low elo. Platinum 1 is the top 2% of players. 2%. That means if you had 100 people in a room and you said, okay, who are the 2 best players in this room? If it was Platinum players, 2 people would raise their hand. Okay, you wouldn't even have a challenger. You wouldn't even get a challenger in the room until you got to like 10,000 players in the same room. Then there might be one person who raises their hand, okay, as a challenger player. All right, so a Platinum player, you have 100 people in a room. You say, who are the 2 best players? Platinum or above, Platinum 1 or higher. 2 people are going to raise their hand, all right? So, you know, using this, and they're calling these people low elo, all right? So using this as an analogy, that's like saying people in the United States who earn $400,000 per year are poor. That's the top 2% of U.S. earners. Look that up. That's ridiculous. It's like, yes, you know, people who earn $400,000 a year, yeah, they are poor compared to billionaires who would be the challengers by comparison, thereabouts, okay? But to believe that these people sincerely are poor is absurd. And it's ridiculous. That's like people who are 400,000 thinking they're trash and they're really bad. They're like, oh my God, I don't make any money. I'm so poor. I only make 400,000. They're like Platinum 1. Oh, I'm so bad. I'm so trash. I'm not, you know, I'm not Diamond or Master player or whatever. That's an obscene standard. All right. So, and the problem is this creates a chain reaction that festers, I think would be a great word, festers into a particularly sort of toxic mentality that people have, not only about other people, but about themselves in the game. So casual players, you know, will hear challengers belittle lower league players. So maybe a challenger gets matched with a diamond player and they're like, oh man, this guy's total trash. Look at this play. And you watch like the replay on YouTube or whatever, and it just goes in slow-mo and shows how they like got hit by this skill shot, or, you know, it shows all these wacky things, right? Because in edited clips on YouTube, you're only getting typically like the most notable plays. You're not going to see the other, you know, 100 times that player dodges that skill shot in Diamond. You're just going to see that one time he gets hit by this blitz hook, or that one time he fail flashes a wall or whatever, when he'll do it right the other 100 times. So it sensationalizes. It takes these very small events and blows them up into larger proportion. It magnifies them, right? And it creates this illusion for casual players that they might be better than those players, right? So you might see a silver player that says, oh, that master player just made a mistake. He fail flashed that wall. I could easily flash that wall. Therefore, I'm much better than him. Because it's a very low sample size of data, right? Or maybe they're just having a bad game, or they got auto-filled on a, you know, a champion they're not familiar with, or something like that. Maybe they're really tired. Maybe they're sick. I mean, maybe they just missed it. I mean, maybe they just made a mistake, right? But like that kind of mentality there is like a high school basketball player thinking he could do better than an NBA player because an NBA player misses a free throw. It's like, oh, dude, I can totally hit free throws. I can hit 9 out of 10, no problem. I'm way better in the NBA than this guy is. Shaq sucks. He only hits 50% of his free throws, obviously. It's a completely different competitive environment, and some of these people are very good in ways that you may not necessarily see if you're just watching like one random game of them, right? Because they show up on this streamer's game. So it's important to understand that League is a very difficult game. Many players actively try to improve. The game has developed a massive following, but at the same time, very few people make significant gains in ELO, okay? It happens. but it is the rarity, right, rather than the exception to see this. And when people don't make this kind of progress, they need to find a reason why they're not gaining elo, okay? And it's very difficult to identify that reason unless you have proper guidance, right? With channels like mine, right? No, but seriously, like, it's really hard if you're playing to say, hey, you know, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I keep losing these games, unless you get like a coaching session from somebody, which I do offer those as well, or from somebody else, or at least like get someone else to look over your replay. I mean, you can go back and watch your own replay too, but you still may not see what could be important. You'll see some stuff, so watching your own replays are good, but you have to have that outside perspective. Otherwise, it's really hard to figure out what you're doing wrong and to improve. And so a lot of people won't do this, right? They won't go watch the replays. They won't get coaching sessions. They won't watch channels like mine that are supposed to be informative to help people learn more about the game. And they're just going to be stuck, and they're not going to know why, and they're going to have to find an excuse, right? That's what cognitive dissonance is, which I've got linked here, which is basically like when your mind believes two opposing things, then it has to find some way to resolve that difference. So, for example, if you think you're a much better player than people around you because you watch these streams, and you're like, oh, I saw this, you know, diamond player that was totally garbage on, you know, I'm a Cutie Pie stream or Red Mercy stream or whatever the other day. Obviously, I'm way better than them, but right now I'm silver 3, and I'm just playing so well every game, but, you know, my teammates are stupid, or this champion's overpowered in this meta, and, you know, I'm just going to keep playing Teemo top because that's what I really love to do, and if I keep getting beat, it's because my teammates are bad, or it's because Pantheon's overpowered. Or, you know, whatever counters Teemo. I'm not sure what counters Teemo, but anyways. And so they'll have this cognitive dissonance. They'll be thinking they're better, but that's contrary to the data because they keep losing and they don't understand why, so they don't make progress. And so they have to come up with these other reasons to justify why they're not making that progress. Something that explains the data in some way. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's what everybody does. I mean, I do that to some extent. Everybody does, right? So here's some examples that they use, like change the behavior, I'll eat no more of this donut. This is justify the behavior or cognition by changing a conflicting cognition. Okay, so I'm allowed to cheat on my diet every once in a while. Justify the behavior cognition by adding new cognitions. I'll spend an extra 30 minutes in the gym. Or ignore it. This donut is not high. Okay, so just lie to yourself about it. You know, I don't have any problems. I have a perfect game. But more than likely, I think people realize they make mistakes. They just try to justify those mistakes in different ways. It's like, well, I'm allowed to make these mistakes, right? I'm allowed to miss this flasher every now and then. I mean, I play so well most of the time. I'm just making these little mistakes every now and then. But it doesn't matter. It's this guy that's going 0-6 top lane. That's the real problem. And they're in every game of mine, right? And trust me, I know how that feels. I know how that feels, okay? So I'm guilty of doing this sometimes too. I'm not immune to it. Nobody is, right? But you have to try to disentangle this and just be honest with yourself and say, okay, well, what could I have done better in the game? And that doesn't just mean your individual solo play. This is where I differ from a lot of other YouTubers. It is not just mute everybody, stick your head in the sand, and play the best micro game that you can. You need to play macro. You need to understand when other people are failing in other lanes and how you can work around that. Can you go help them? Should you go help them? How can you rotate around the map to compensate for this weakness? How can you avoid, you know, the Akali who's 4-0 top lane? Like, what can you do to get your team ahead while avoiding their strength until the rest of your team catches up? Should you take this objective or not based on, you know, how reliable your jungler is with Smite? You know, where should you put your wards? If you're getting pushed in mid lane and you're just getting slammed, maybe you should donate your pink ward upriver to help the mid laner with his domination. So it matters to watch other people and pay attention. Okay, it does. Do not mute all and stick your head in the sand and just play your own game. That is not the best way to do it. Okay, but you do need to be honest about your own mistakes. Okay, so just because you're noticing the mistakes of others, and I point them out on stream a lot of times if there are ways to optimize, because it's an educational stream. Hey, thanks for the sub. I appreciate it. Because it's an educational stream, and that's my job, I think, as an educator, or that's, you know, my persona on stream. That's what I want to be. I want to help people become better players, and I can't do that if I don't point stuff out. So if I just sit there silent, or I just like don't talk about compositions or why we're falling behind or why we're winning, in a lot of cases, it's not always negative, then I'm not helping to educate you. So I'm pointing all that stuff out. So you should notice that. You don't have to tell people their mistakes. Don't say, hey, Darius, you suck. You're 0-4 top lane, right? Just take note of it. Okay, he's 0-4. we got to be careful around this guy, right? He might make some more mistakes. He might have some problems. He might be playing something he's not comfortable with. So it's important to take notice of all those things. So you don't want to blame everybody else for your problems, but you do want to notice when their problems are causing you problems, and you need to find solutions. So you need to say, okay, you know, this composition really, really underperformed. Maybe I should dodge next time I see this type of thing in a game. Or, okay, this situation happened. Maybe I should have shot called this different, or maybe I should have done this or that. In addition to just your own micro things that you hopefully notice. Like, okay, I missed this flash. Okay, I should not have gone in there. I shouldn't have been aggressive. Of course, notice all those things, but notice the big picture stuff too. Okay. So anyways, this creates cognitive dissonance because League is very difficult. People don't think that it's difficult. They think they're better than people that are much higher than them, that are much better than them. And they don't make a lot of gains. They need some kind of excuse. Okay, enter the YouTube sensationalists, okay? So I'm not going to name specific people. There are a lot of people that do this, okay? Where you have the all caps and they're playing some novelty champion with a novelty build. Like, oh my God, look at this, you know, full AD RE mid lane, or oh my God, look at this, you know, AP Urgot jungle or something like that. Okay, so just whatever, you know, non-meta stuff that's out there, right? So I call them YouTube sensationalists because they try to make something sound like it's really exciting and new and powerful, and they create a very controlled artificial environment to demonstrate that power. Okay, so they try to get footage of this. Usually they're smurfing, so they're playing on a much lower account. So that's like going on to, you know, if you're an NBA player, if this person is like a high diamond master level player or something like that, and then they go play in a normals, or they go on their smurf and play against gold players. That's like going to like the elementary school playground and doing like some Harlem Globetrotter stuff. You know, if people don't know what that is, that's like just doing like just ridiculous trick plays and things like that, and scoring all these goals, you know, racking up like 50 points in a game by shooting all backward shots, or like wearing a blindfold, or doing it all on one leg, or whatever. Or like playing defense without any hands. You know, you're up against a 5-year-old, you're just like bodying up on them, you know, that type of stuff. So basically they're just abusing people that aren't legitimate contenders, right? Just people who can't keep up with them with these crazy builds. And it creates the illusion that it's the build or it's the champion that in fact is really powerful, when in fact it's just they're bullying people that aren't as good as they are. And it makes it look a lot better. Now, why would people do this, you ask? Why would they not just focus on meta things? Well, it's because they have to create new content to sustain their business models, because lots of channels are modeled on the sensationalist content, right? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's entertaining. It's fine. But I'm saying that it's bad when it serves as a substitute, which we'll talk about in a second, to real progression, okay? So the reason that people do this, and the reason that it's profitable, is there's not much actual change between patches, okay? So we get a patch every 2 weeks. There's not that much really that changes during those 2 weeks, but that's 14 days. And a lot of these channels are modeled on releasing a new video every single day. So they have to find something to fill that airtime. They have to find screen time. They can't just say Janna's powerful in every video for 14 days, or they can't say Jarvan's really strong for 14 days, right? Because people want fresh stuff. They want to be entertained. They want new content, okay? And so they have to come up with something, and so they create these sensational things that look like they're realistic or entertaining or like groundbreaking or new, when in fact, they're not usually that effective. Like occasionally someone might win with one of those. It looks fun. It looks interesting, but it's not very effective for gaining elo. There's a reason that it's not played by a vast majority of the population. Like, that's not to say that some of these things aren't occasionally right. I mean, Phylol, for example, came up with Malzahar support, and he talked about that in late December. And that was actually really good. And I took that advice. I was like, huh, that looks really cool. And I did my own research. I practiced it a lot in normals. And I was like, you know what? I really like this. I'm going to try it out. And then it became very strong. So I was a very early adopter of that video, and I figured out about it because of Phylol, right? And so they're not always wrong about these things. It's just they're often wrong about these things because they can't be right most of the time, or it would be meta, right? So yeah, you'll find a gem in the coal mine every now and then, but most of the time it's just going to be coal. It's just stuff that they are using to generate views. Now, once again, I'm not saying that's bad. I watch these people. I watch Phylol. I watch Red Mercy. Occasionally, I watch Solo Renekton Only. You know, I watch a lot of these people, right? There are a lot of them. I'm not calling out anyone specifically, okay? It's just you need to understand that's a business model, okay? And that's fine. fully support them making money on YouTube, right? More power to them. I love it. They have very creative content. It does take a lot of work to edit those and to go out and get that footage and just to have the creativity to think of some of these things or the research to find out about it in Korea or wherever they get these ideas, okay? So it does take work. It is creative. It is fun. It does deserve compensation, okay? So I'm not hating on them for making money. They should. I'm just trying to inform you that often that's not the best way to make ELO because I'm concerned for you. I want you to gain as much ELO as you can. I want to see everybody who watches my channel move up numerous ranks. And people tell me this happens all the time. But this is something that if you're newer to the channel, that you need to realize is that this is how it goes on. It's not just altruistic. It's not just these people think that, these YouTubers think that this is actually a way that people can gain a lot of ELO, right? That's not their intent. I don't think they present it that way. They don't tell people, hey, go do this and you'll gain a lot of ELO. Like they're not false advertising, but it's implicit in their play, right? If it's something that's dominating, it looks really sweet, they know people want to play it. They know it's going to cost them ranked ELO, right? But they got to make that money, man. And it's on the people to have the critical thinking to realize that too. So there's a large demand for it. It's fine. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. I don't have ethical qualms with it. It's fine. But what the problem is if people aren't realistic with their goals, if they actually want to gain ELO and they're doing these things and they're not gaining and they're upset about it, and then they become like toxic or frustrated, then that's when it becomes a problem. Okay. So a lot of players will use these sensational strategies to justify their lack of ranked progress. That's the problem, okay? It's not a problem watching fun stuff, trying fun stuff out, having a good time, but people will use this as an excuse for why they're not progressing in ranked. They're like, well, it's got to be, my teammates or something else. I keep playing AP Urgot in the jungle, and, I'm doing pretty well. I mean, I end most games like, 5, 5, and 7. That's pretty good. I mean, that's more than a 1 KDA, right? It's almost, that's more than a 2. It's like a 2.2 KDA. I'm doing all right, and I saw, whoever Night Blue 3 playing this, and he's really good. And so I know it's a good strategy. Obviously it works. It's just, it's got to be these other players on my team, right? Or it's got to be something about the meta. It's just overpowered Rengar, overpowered Jarvan in the jungle. That's just it. Could I play Jarvan? Yeah, of course. If I played Jarvan, heck yeah, I'd be challenger in a week if I played Jarvan. I could do it, but I don't want to because I'm not a meta slave. I fear that's the mentality of a lot of people, right? It's this kind of arrogance where it's like, oh yeah, I definitely could be challenger. I'm just not because I'm playing these off-meta picks, right? Like, yeah, I watched the stream. I saw these stupid diamond players miss these flashes and all this stuff. I could easily play better than them if I really wanted to, but I don't want to, man. I mean, who wants to do that? That's no fun. That's boring, right? Who wants to play boring old Jarvan every game? I could do it, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna play AP Urgot in the jungle, and any of these people that are just playing Jarvan, that's just easy mode. They're just meta slaves. They're just bad. Real players could play and win with AP Urgot in the jungle, right? And so we all know people like that. We may have been like that at one point or another. I'm not saying I haven't thought things like that in the past, right? I've been playing the game for a long time. I've gone through many evolutions as a player, right? And still, like I said, still I make mistakes like that, right? I'm sure somehow this kind of thought process works its way in, and the cognitive dissonance definitely does from time to time, right? It's something you constantly have to fight with. So it's the prerogative of each player. If people want to play goofy stuff, I personally think it's immoral to do that in ranked play because I want to try to respect my teammates and I always play to win. But I understand the argument where it's like it's each person's own game, and you know what? If they want to play AP Urgot in the jungle, it's allowed. It's allowed. I'll put it that way. I'm not going to say I endorse that because, like I said, I think that's selfish and rude to other people in the ranked game. But you know what? It's allowed. So we'll put it that way. But the problem is, so I'm not like critiquing any specific picks themselves. The problem is it discourages people from developing proper critical thinking because they're so busy coming up with all these excuses to justify their non-meta picks that they're not working on their macro. They're not working on focusing on a very specific champion that's powerful and learning the matchups better, learning better itemization, learning, all of these details. They just don't have the patience to work on that because it's hard. Like I said, people think it's easy from the streams. It's really hard to become a good player in League of Legends. It really is if you work it out. I mean, the top 1% is the top 1%. I mentioned that here, regardless of the competition. The top 1% in anything is hard to do. I don't care if it's a hot dog eating contest. I can't be the top 1% hot dog eating contest. I can't be the top 1% in almost anything, right? It takes a lot of time, effort, and practice to get to that level. Okay? So that's hard work. It's a lot easier just to play these non-meta things and just complain about all these external factors, right? So you need to be thinking critically about what can I do to improve my play, and particularly macro, what can I do to improve the play of my teammates? Because it's not just about improving your play, it's improving your team's play as a unit. That's what macro is all about. And that's what people talk about in a lot of team sports. The best NBA players, they always say, not only are great themselves, but they make their teammates great. Okay, that's what people said of Michael Jordan when he really turned a corner and became great. That's when Kobe became great. That's when LeBron became great. All these great players is because they help their teammates become better by getting them more involved in the play, by taking a more active role in shot calling, running plays, encouraging people. All of that stuff is very important, especially in league also. So yeah, it's a lot easier to play off-meta picks and blame meta champions for OP qualities rather than play meta and analyze micro, macro to become stronger through lots of practice, right? That's the hard way to do it, and that's really, if you want to improve, that's the only way to do it, honestly. So just think about like a football coach who blamed the rules of the game for his failed off-meta strategies, like refusing to kick a field goal. So like, saying that he always goes for touchdowns. He's like, well, that's stupid. Why do we only have 4 downs? Or that's overpowered. They're just like completely, blitzing my quarterback here because they know we have a faulty, defensive line and it's 4th and 3 and I refuse to go for a field goal. So that's the rules' fault. That's stupid. We should have 5 downs. Or, they're cheating. They have a bigger team than I do. Like, it's Alabama. Why are they always winning? This is not fair. Well, I guess I don't know. That's a different kind of thing, I guess. But anyways, that would seem ludicrous, right? Or any game like soccer or football internationally, right? If people are just like constantly doing these really off-meta strategies and losing, people are going to say that coach is a fool, right? Why is he doing that? Why doesn't he just play a relatively standard game of football or basketball or whatever? So yeah, most football games or football or any sport, they're won with conventional meta strategies for the most part. Like there's some flair sprinkled in there, right? Like they have their own little trick plays. They have their own players that are particularly strong. They try to play around. So maybe they have a good quarterback, so they throw a few more passes than average. Or maybe they have a really good running back, so they run certain patterns that help their running back succeed a bit more. Yeah, they're gonna, there's gonna be a little wiggle room, right? In what they do each game, but overall they're gonna have very similar, like they're gonna do the stuff that's strong, right? They're gonna do whatever their opponent's weak against. They're gonna exploit matchups. If they have a really good matchup against a weak receiver who's a rookie receiver against your all NFL receiver, you're gonna pass it to that all NFL receiver a lot, right? Maybe the main safety is injured or something, and now you've got your second or third string safety in there. Yeah, you'd be a fool not to pass it to him all day. So not like understanding matchups and exploiting matchups and just doing the best that you can given whatever the meta is on the field, whatever the most optimal effective strategy is. Not doing that a lot is just foolish if you're actually trying to win the game, right? Okay. So what does this mean? And the same is true of League. If you're not taking advantage of the most powerful, effective strategies that are available to you, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're lowering your win percentage chance. So now, it doesn't mean that you have to play the best champion every time, but it needs to be something within reason, right? It needs to be something that is effective and is powerful in a lot of situations, right? That's going to give you the best chance to win. So, I'm talking about like, if you know Jarvan, if Jarvan's good, if you like playing Jarvan, if you have a lot of experience on him, you're like 60% on Jarvan, he's left open, but you just saw a video from a sensationalist that's talking about, how powerful Gnar jungle is, and you're like, you know what, it's open. I just feel like playing Gnar, let's do it. And then you just play Gnar in the jungle, and you lose, and you're like, dang it, it's because this guy missed his smite at Baron, or dang it, it's because, external factor. No, it's because you didn't pick Jarvan, you have experience on Jarvan, you're good with Jarvan, and Jarvan's good right now. And you didn't pick him. Like, that's a huge part of it. That matters, okay? He's better. If you're good with him, he's good right now. So I'm not saying that, if you've never played Janna and you hate playing Janna, or like you have a 30% win rate with Janna and you have very little practice, that if Janna's open, you have to take Janna. Okay, I'm not saying that you have to force picks. I'm just saying that if you have the capacity to play something that you recognize is powerful, is the most powerful option that you can possibly play at that slot, and you choose not to do that, that you're hurting your chances of winning. Okay, I know that sounds obvious, but there's so many people that would disagree with that statement. Okay, and that's what this whole thing is about. Okay, so what does this mean in terms of whether or not you should be a meta slave? So you need, first of all, the most important thing here is you need to be honest with yourself about your goals as a player. This is crucial to ask this and be honest. And there's not a correct answer, and you're not a bad person if you want to be casual at the game. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. I know there's this thing out like filthy casual, whatever. Absolutely nothing wrong with enjoying it and just having fun and just viewing League of Legends as a game. We'll talk about the difference between game and what I think League of Legends actually is. But there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to take the game that way, that's perfectly fine. Just if you're going to do that, you have to be cool with not, if you're playing ranked and you want to be casual, you have to be cool with not gaining elo, okay? Or possibly losing elo, all right? You can't have it both. You cannot be very casual and just identify, okay, I'm not going to try hard at this and expect to gain elo, all right? You cannot have both. You must choose, okay? Either you're going to dedicate it, you're going to, try to be better, or you're going to be casual and just do whatever you want, play whatever you want, just have fun with the game, okay? That's the problem, is I think a lot of people want to be more casual. They want to not look up any guides. They want to just play whatever they want to play every game, and they expect to gain elo off of that. Especially, I think it's in Platinum, because people start getting very arrogant. I mean, I think it's in almost every elo, but people get to Platinum or they get to low Diamond. Diamond 5 is the worst, actually, that I've seen this season in terms of, like, people playing, like, really bad, or just, like, stuff they obviously don't know how to play very well, and just not giving a flip about winning. But people just get to a certain rank that they think is good, and then all of a sudden they think they're good on everything. And we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a second. But the question you need to ask yourself, are you okay with being casual? If you are casual, and by casual, like I said, I'm talking about minimal effort, right? In terms of minimal games played, minimal like research on guides, just experimenting with a lot of other stuff, minimal commitment to winning strategies. Okay, that's casual. And there's nothing per se wrong with that. You just need to be cool with it. You need to be honest with yourself if that's what you want to be, okay? Do you want to learn new champs and strats? Okay, so this is another key question, kind of close to casual. Do you just want to experiment and play a lot of things and try different strategies and try different champions, and you get a lot of joy out of doing that? That's casual, okay? So that's kind of a trick question there, because if you want that, if you want to experiment and learn a lot of new champions and try out different like experimental strategies and things like that, that is casual. You need to recognize that is casual, okay? It's okay. That's not a bad word to be casual. That's what that is, okay? That's not professionalization, which we'll talk about here in a second. That is casual, all right? Nothing wrong with it. If it's fun, if you love it, that's awesome. But just be real. If you're doing that, if you're being casual, you're probably not going to gain a lot of elo, okay? So just don't be upset. You can't be upset if you're casual. If you want to do that type of stuff, you can't be upset, all right? You just like, okay, I'm casual. I want to experiment. I just want to have some fun. I want to do some different stuff. All right, good with it. I'm, whatever, bronze 2 right now, totally cool with that. All right, but you can't be like, dang it, I really wanted to get gold by the end of the season, but I've played like 30 different champions 50 times this season, and I just can't commit to a single champion. It's like, well, that's a big problem. Okay? But anyways, okay, so do you want to gain elo? Do you want to professionalize? That doesn't mean you're going pro. It means you're getting a professional attitude, which we'll talk about here in a second. So you need to ask, what's your priority? What do you want out of the game? What do you want to do? And then be okay with it. Come to peace with it, all right? So if you are serious about gaining elo, you need to take the game seriously. Okay, so League is not easier than traditional sports in terms of becoming elite. Okay, I just mentioned that 1% is 1%. It doesn't matter if it's hot dog eating. It doesn't matter if it's horseshoe throwing, playing darts, shooting pool, like hopscotch, whatever. It doesn't matter. The top 1% of anything that's competitive it's going to be difficult. That's it. So I think people get confused sometimes because they'll see, professional basketball players like run and do like this 360 windmill dunk, right? And they'll say, well, I'm not doing that, so I physically can't do that. So I'm never going to be as good as that player, right? And so when I go out to play basketball, I'm more comfortable with the fact that I'm casual. I'm like, you know what? I'm not really tall. I'm kind of out of shape. I don't have a great jump shot. I like playing the game. It's fun. I used to be all right at it when I was younger, but I'm a bit older now. So I'm more comfortable being casual, okay? I'm saying, you know what? I'm casual, cool with it. But with like League, you see someone like, Bjergsen do this really cool play on LeBlanc, or you're watching, I'm a Cutie Pie stream and he flashes this skill shot and like does this really cool, like, I don't know, pins someone into a wall with Vayne and like rolls out of the way of another skill shot and just does all this stuff that looks really cool. And you're like, dude, I could totally do that. No problem. When in fact, most people can't. You can't do that. You can't play LeBlanc like Bjergsen. You can't play Zed like Faker, and you're never going to. Okay? It's just so difficult for people to come to terms with that, to accept that, to just say, you know what? That's the same thing as a 360 windmill dunk. It just is an illusion where it looks like I could do that because we're both playing a game and we're both just sitting here clicking on our keyboard and our mouse, but you're not going to do it. Their brain process is just too fast. Their reaction time is too fast. Their game knowledge is too high. You're not going to get to that level, most likely. You're just not. Like, you can improve. You can become a much better player. After years and years of practice, you might be able to become, diamond, master, maybe even challenger. Right? But the likelihood that you're going to be someone like a Bjergsen or a Faker or, any number of like, Prey or Gorilla or Wolf or just any of these notorious like world-class players is an illusion. It's not happening. It's just as distant or impossible as that 360 windmill dunk. And that's okay, right? That's okay. But you can become better if you take the game seriously, all right? So that's kind of the disjoint there, where people think they can do that. And so when they're actually being casual, they don't think they're being casual. They think they're progressing. They think they are a really good player, just something else is holding them back. Whereas in basketball, I know why I'm not progressing. I know what it means to be casual, right? I know, okay, I'm not hitting the gym. I'm not, getting out here shooting 100 jump shots per day. I'm not growing an extra 6 inches or something like that, right? Like, I know what the problem is. But in League of Legends, you can't identify that as easily, as I've talked about numerous times now, right? Where people think that they're actually like entitled to getting this higher rank, or just because they're playing some games and they think they're doing all right, they think that's enough, right? Like, okay, I don't need to put that much more effort into it. It's just a video game. Who cares? I should be able to get diamond tomorrow, right? No, false. You have to work at it. It's not easier than a traditional sport. 1% is 1%. It is difficult. It is difficult, all right? So here is, something that I think needs huge clarification here. Ranked League of Legends is much closer to a sport than a game. This is very different historically from virtually any other game. Because this is how I'm thinking of sport. These are words that come to my mind. Competitive, social, dedication, challenge, stakes. Okay? When I think of game, I'm thinking casual, leisure, entertainment. You're just chilling. You're playing a single-player game. You can just pick it up, play a couple hours after work. No big deal. You're going to beat the game. It's going to be interesting. You're really involved in the story. You're not competing with people. There's no stakes. You're not going to be offered a scholarship for this. You're not going to have a potential like really lucrative streamer career if you get to a high rank. It's just for fun. It's just for chill, right? Whereas a sport is, like I said, very similar to League. It's competitive. It's social. Like, you have to work with other people together to accomplish this goal, whereas a lot of times games are single player. It requires a lot of dedication and practice to get much better at it. It's extremely challenging, and there's very high stakes, potentially, right? Like, if you're very good at this game, you could go pro and make millions of dollars. You could become a streamer and potentially make, a lot of money. There are a lot of colleges that are offering scholarships for this now. If you get to a high rank, if you're in Challenger and Master, you could have jobs in the industry. You might be offered a shoutcaster job. You might be offered a job as a writer for a really popular site like Surrender at 20 or, X boost.com site that makes tier lists or whatever. You could do coaching sessions. You could create guides. Like, there's so much content you can do with your expertise if you get a very high ethos, a very high reputation as a player. So if you get to a high rank, if you acquire a lot of game knowledge, you can leverage that. You can actually do things with that. Okay? So that's what draws the line with League and a lot of other games out there, is that the stakes are very high if you want them to be, right? Really, the sky's the limit in terms of things you can accomplish if you're very good at League of Legends. Compared to many games in the past. There's never been a game like that in the past, where there are so many people that can make, so much money off of streaming, or can get college scholarships, or can get jobs in an industry, like a lot of jobs, because it's a huge booming industry. Like, they're going to need all kinds of PR people, advertisers, video editors. I mean, where do you think someone like I'm a Cutie Pie meets his editors? Probably in solo queue, or it's recommended by other challenger players, or this person's recommended by other challenger players. How do they meet them? Well, they meet them through playing the game, probably. So if you get up there and you're like hobnobbing with these other elite players, opportunities will come your way. Like, you might get a chance to be an editor. You might get a chance to do some kind of PR representation for a firm. I mean, it's no secret that a lot of the original Rioters, if you think about Kobe, Freak, Jat, all of these were diamond level players, right? Like, they were also employed by Riot. But a big part of why they got these jobs is, I think Freak was a Rioter from the start. But like Jat and Kobe, for example, they get these positions because they were really good at the game. They knew the right people, right? Like, they were playing at a very top level. They probably got invited to play in these public betas. They gave really good feedback. They had really good analysis. And so Riot's like, hey, you want a job? And they're like, sure. Maybe you could be a coach, right? You look at someone like, I can't remember his name, Prawley, who coaches some team in Europe. I can't remember his team. It's not Misfits. It's not G2. I can't remember, but it's a good team in Europe, and he used to be a former, pro player. Very briefly, I think there was one split where he was a pro player in the NALCS. So there are all these job opportunities if you get to a high rank and you get a very high reputation within the community. This is a big deal, okay? Like, it doesn't have to be if you want to be casual, but if you want to go up, these are doors that could open for you if you get very, very good at the game. So that's what makes it much closer to a sport. Because just like in sports, if you do very well in a sport, if you become a pro player, you could get a job as a coach. You could get a job as, an analyst on a team. You could get a job as a scout or recruiter like Charles Barkley, or any number of other, commentators on ESPN and all these other places. A lot of them were former pro players. So they never would have been offered that job, most likely, if they hadn't been pro at first. So there are a lot of industry options, just like a sport. Whereas playing a game, you're not going to get that, right? Like, mostly. Like, you can still stream. If you're really good at, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of Witcher 3 or something like that, right? Like, Witcher 3's out, and you're like, man, I'm really good at Witcher 3. I can play it on, like, the highest difficulty level, get all of the quests. I have some entertaining comments. You can make a YouTube channel about it, but there's not going to be many YouTubers that can get a substantial following off of playing Witcher 3, and that game's going to be done eventually. It's going to be relatively culturally irrelevant within a year, right? Like, it's going to come and go. It's a good game. It's going to be a classic, but it's not going to have nearly the opportunities that something like League of Legends would. So that is a game. It's relatively casual. It's leisurely. It's mostly for entertainment. You can do some streaming with it, but there's not a professional scene. There's not like a competitive challenge against other players. The stakes aren't super high for most people. So that is a game versus a sport. Okay, so sport is really a bad term because it has too much cultural baggage. People think of physical stuff and all that. So it's not great. It's kind of like an art, but art doesn't usually seem to be that competitive, and I think the competitiveness is key. So there's just not a good term for it, okay? But it's clear that it's not just a game to a lot of people because it has all of these qualities that make it very different from a standard single-player narrative-driven game, right? So there have been stuff like this in the past. There's been StarCraft. There's been, other things that have been competitive, but not nearly to this level. That League of Legends is on a completely different stratosphere with all of this stuff than anything that there ever has been in the past, okay? So, I'm not saying that you need to be a meta slave, but I'm saying that if you want to succeed It is not simple. That's the point here. It is not simple. It is not a game. It is relative to a sport. And if you want to do well at it, you need to practice. Just like if you want to be good at basketball, you need to practice. You might be able to get away with getting onto your high school team, or something if you very rarely practiced. If you have a lot of just really raw talent, like you might be able to play at like a very, lower level. So you might be able to like just start league. And if you're like, just pretty good at video games, you have good reaction time and just a pretty basic understanding of games, without looking up anything, you might be able to get to gold, in your first season if you're really strong. But you're not going to get much further than that without playing a lot of games, doing research, and just really committing yourself to becoming a better player, taking it seriously and trying to professionalize. All top level players will tell you that. No one just accidentally gets to diamond without playing a lot of games and or usually doing a lot of research and trying to professionalize their play. Okay, so what does this mean? What does professionalize your play mean? And that's going to be it. And we'll see if we get this done in an hour. If I get it done in under an hour, I'm going to have to give myself a pat on the back. I'm really trying to make faster videos. I know people say it's easy. You just put some bullet points in or do this and that. I have bullet points. I have an entire, sheet full of bullet points. It's just I'm very detailed and I want to be clear and articulate in my explanations. And it's hard to do that precisely without sacrificing some kind of depth. But I'm trying. That's who I am. Okay, so what does professionalism and League of Legends, what does that mean? I think in League would be better there. Okay, so there's 5 steps to being more professionalized in League, which will dramatically improve your play. And it's not being a meta slave, it's being a professional. Okay, not in the sense that you're going to be a pro player, but you have the professional mentality. All right, and this could apply not just to League, but to anything that's competitive that you want to do, okay? This could apply to soccer, could apply to basketball, it could apply to playing the violin, whatever it is that's very competitive, these 5 things will apply to it, okay? It's dedication, patience, insight, growth, consistency, all right? So how can you cultivate these things as a League player? Okay, so dedication. You need to play many games to improve, all right? There's no way around that. Once you get past sort of your natural talent level, which for most people is going to cap out around low silver or bronze, all right? Because most people are just going to play at their relatively natural level, right? They're not going to look stuff up in silver and bronze. They're not going to research a lot of times. Some of them will, but that's where you're going to land. If you're just like super good at video games, like you just have great reaction times, you have great sort of like just mental processing of material, you have a lot of experience with other competitive games, you might end up in gold or something like that. But usually it takes a lot of games. And it's very important that you ignore haters who talk about tryharding. Okay, this is feeding up into this meta slave propaganda. Oh, well, anyone who plays Jarvan or anyone who plays Rakan support or anyone who plays, Twitch ADC, all of them, they're just meta slaves, they're just tryharding. I could do that, it's real easy, but I'm gonna do it like the fun way, the creative way. I'm a unique snowflake. I do all that kind of rhetoric, right? So you need to ignore that. Many games does not equal that you're bad. I hear this sometimes. People say, oh my God, you play, thousands of games. It's like, I'm a streamer. I do that for 5 hours a day, right? Like that's basically my job. Like I do have an actual job at a university where I teach persuasive students, or I teach students persuasive writing. That's my day job. But at night, running this channel is like a job, right? It takes a lot of time. But, people will say, oh, well, if you play hundreds of games on this, on your account or whatever, you're bad. Like, obviously, if you're still gold after 100 games, or you're still gold after like 3 seasons, you're bad. Clearly, because anyone who's good is going to get to Challenger, within the 2nd season they're playing, obviously. They're going to play like, 100 games to get to Challenger, right? No. That is unreasonable expectations. There are some people, yes, if you throw Faker or Apto or something here, yeah, they're going to get to Challenger probably in 100 games or less, right? Just like if you throw Michael Jordan like into a high school basketball game, he's going to score 100 points, that type of stuff. But that's not a good way to look at it for everybody. And just that's such a backwards way of thinking that if you're dedicated, you're practicing, and you're trying to improve, all of a sudden you're bad. It's like the only people who are good are people who don't try. or who just like don't practice. You know, just imagine if NBA fans said that LeBron was bad because he practiced too much. And they said things like, you know, he should have won 9 championships by now. He should have won championships his first or second year. He got to the finals. He didn't get it. Obviously, he's bad. You know? Yeah, whatever. He won a few since then. It doesn't matter. He's bad. He practices way too much. Like, a really good NBA player should be someone who just walks in and steps on the court and is just awesome. You know? Good players like Michael Jordan, Shaq, Kobe. None of these people ever worked hard at the game. It just came naturally to them. They just showed up at the NBA and they were just the greatest of all time. Just imagine if people said that, just how ignorant that would sound, right? Like all of those players, part of why they're really good, yeah, they are sort of naturally good at the game to some extent. Like they do have good coordination. They are, you know, tall, athletic, you know, men, but they work at it a lot. That's really hard. I mean, if you think about like Michael Jordan, he was cut, I think, from his high school team. He didn't make the cut. He wasn't good enough to make it in high school, Michael Jordan. And then all of a sudden, he keeps working. He works harder and harder and harder, and he keeps working. He gets into college. He's all right. And then now he's recognized by most people, if not as the best player of all time, certainly in the top 3. He's really high in the conversation. And he was cut from his high school team. So clearly, he had to practice a lot. He had to get much better through a lot of practice and dedication and these aspects of professionalism I'm going to talk about right now. Okay, so just because you play a lot of games does not mean that you're bad. It means that you're working, that you're dedicated, and that's good. All right? And this concept of hard stuck is super toxic. I hear this all the time. Oh, well, you know, X person's hard stuck. I've had people tell me, oh, I'm hard stuck earlier in the season. Oh, strategy professor's all washed up. He's hard stuck gold 2. You know, he spent the first 100 games. He got placed in the gold 2. Spent the first 100 games, you know, caught up there. He's all washed up, you know. And then later on, it's like, oh, he's, you know, he's platinum 4. He's washed up, man. He can't get out of plat 5, plat 4. He's been in his promos for platinum 4 like 8 times already. You know, he's just awful. He would have already been up there. He's not going anywhere. And even just recently, I was platinum 1 in promos for diamond 5. Took a bit of a spill. Got dropped down. I've been platinum 1 like 4 times this season. I was diamond last season. Diamond 5. And I had people on stream saying, oh, you know, he's really bad or he's hard stuck. And someone was even saying, I'll bet you he ends up as gold at the end of the season, right? Just because I had a bad like 4 days, you know, just on a bad streak, right? Like I just went like 30% over 4 days or something, right? It's a bad streak. And it doesn't mean it's the end of the world, right? Like, you know, don't sound it. It's just a bad streak, man. Like LeBron has bad games. Kobe has bad games. They have bad weeks. They have bad seasons sometimes, right? And I think Kobe's first season, he only scored like 17 points or something on average. Right? So this concept of hard stuck is very toxic because it assumes that wherever you are, there's no way to get over it, right? It's like, oh, you're there and that's just where your talent level is. There's no way to rise above it. That's not true. That's called stability. That's called consolidation. If you look at a stock, a lot of the best stocks over time, they go through these long periods of consolidation. Nothing goes up in a straight line. You know, a lot of the great stocks, you know, they'll have this climb when they come up with a new product. It's really strong. And then they'll just kind of, you know, peter around, be standard for a little bit. I mean, let me look at this really quick. Let me show you this as a non-league concept here. Is it going to show me the spider here or not? I could think of a company like, okay, here we go. Yeah, the spider index, all right. So like people here, you know, they would have said things like, if you looked at like average growth and tracked this trend, people would say things like, oh, you know, this is hard stuck, right? Or like if we look at what 2015, so like last 5 years, hard stuck, right? So from 2015 all the way to, you know, whatever, like almost to 2017, hard stuck, it's over. S&P's, it's definitely crashing, man. It's hard stuck. You know, there's no way. You got to sell out now. There's no way it could possibly go any higher. It's definitely hard stuck, right? It's like, no, you need to move your perspective out a little bit. Look, that's going up from left to right. It's going up over a long period of time. This is how this is how ELO will look, right? You're going to have dips. There's going to be certain metas that are bad. You can't play your best champions. You have to learn new champions. So you're going to dip down a little bit. You're going to go back up. You're going to dip down a little bit. And you're going to say, man, that sucks. Like, I've spent a lot of this season. I mean, this is almost literally like the graph of my ELO this season, right? Almost literally it. Like, if you were to graph my ELO progression this season, this is about what it would look like. I mean, I'm curious to see if that's even like... I mean, that's not showing like entirely, because this makes it look like it's just Platinum 4, but there was a lot of sort of up and down for a little bit, right? Like it's up, down, up, down. It just went up, kind of stabilizing, going back up. That's just what happens when you play League of Legends. You go up, you go down some, you go up, you go down some. You might float around and just stabilize for a little bit somewhere, and then eventually you figure something out, and like, boom, there it is. It's back up. So it's this like stair-step process up, you know, up. It doesn't go up in a straight line. If it does, it usually comes back down. And that's how a lot of successful companies look. I mean, I'm trying to think of another company, like maybe like JP Morgan or something. Disclaimer, I do own some JP Morgan stock, a little bit. Yeah, I mean, you would just say, okay, JP Morgan's all washed up. They can't do anything anymore. They might as well give up. And then bam, you know? Like, huge boost, right? This is just what companies do. And if you extend that out, look, left to right, it's going up, right? So it looks like, yeah, it's stabilized for a little bit. But if you gave up on it, if you're just like, I give up, I'm hard stuck, you know, after you've been sort of bounced around a little bit, then you miss this huge pop, right? So you just have to be attentive. You have to be patient. Okay? So you have to stabilize until you find a solution. And like... if you think about this in any other industry, it's ludicrous, right? So no one says that scientists suck. If you think of like anyone who's hard stuck is bad, or they suck, or they just, you know, aren't good. Like, no one says scientists suck because they're hard stuck on research for cancer cure. Or, man, the scientists suck. Like, they haven't figured out how to give us like floating jets and cars yet, or whatever. You know, like some problems are difficult and require time. It doesn't have to be instant. I know we live in a world of instant gratification and like, oh, it's results oriented. Oh, you know, if you're not going up constantly, you know, if you go for 3 weeks without gaining at least a division, then all of a sudden you're terrible. You're washed up. You're bad. No, you're just figuring something out. And so you have to avoid being results oriented. You can't just look at what's happening in the games, like the wins and the losses. You need to focus on the process. Focus on what can you do game to game, every game, to improve your game in some way, including shot calling and helping your teammates, okay? So not just what you're doing on a micro level, but also on a macro level. What can you do to improve? And if you just focus on the process and don't pay attention to whether or not you're winning, then that helps. I mean, obviously, you do need to look at some stats, right? You do need to look at stats. Stats are important. Oh, here we go. Champions, yeah. You know, you do need to look at stats and say, you know what? I'm winning a lot with Janna, so I probably should be playing more Janna. So it is important to look at aggregate stats, but you just can't get too riled up if you go on like a win streak or a loss streak or whatever. You have to just like look at the aggregate stats, say, okay, I'm doing really well with Sona, Zyra, Janna, okay with Rakan. I should play a lot of those champions, all right? So don't get caught up in hard stuck. A lot of times it's just a couple of things. If you just fix like getting ganked a couple of times, you just put out more wards, that might seem really small, but that might be enough to propel you from silver 3 to gold 3. Just very small changes over time like that can make an astronomical difference. So just working on fixing these things that seem really small, these little things, and then it'll have huge results in your own gameplay. And then just every time, you know, you start getting kind of caught up and consolidating a little bit, think of one more thing you can practice. Say, okay, I'm doing well not getting ganked. I'm doing well getting wards out. What's something else I can work on? And so then go watch channels like mine or other informative channels to help you out. Watch some of your own replays or have someone else watch them, like a coaching session type of thing. Learn some new stuff and just say, okay, I'm going to work on this. And then just work on that one thing as much as you can. So just work on, okay, I'm going to get 30 wards down every game. I'm going to get one control ward every 5 minutes, no matter what. And I'm not going to die to a lane gank. That's it. Those are the 3 things I'm working on. Not dying in lane, warding more, with normal wards and control wards, and getting this correct item path that seems really efficient. Okay, very simple, very controllable. You can do that, okay? And it might seem like that's not much, but that's a really, really big deal, just as an example that could give you a lot of gain. So you need dedication, you need to practice, you need to understand it's going to take a while. It's okay to play a lot of games. It's okay to consolidate, not hard stuck, but consolidate. It's okay to be in one spot for a little bit, because eventually you will move up if you focus on the process and you just keep finding ways to improve your play. Okay, this fits into number 2, patience. You need to play champions that work for you, okay? If it's working, do it, all right? The number 1 way that players stall, that they consolidate, or they get hard stuck, or sometimes even fall, is experimentation. They try out champions they don't know how to play, and they lose games with them, okay? So you need to practice new champions and normals, and always play your best champion in ranked. Always put your best foot forward. It might be something new that you practice a lot in normals, and you think the meta is shifting that way. This champion all of a sudden has become very good, like Morgana or something, for instance, recently has become pretty good. That's fine. It doesn't forever and always have to be, Janna or your most played champion or whatever. It can be different stuff, but you need to practice it, and you need to feel very comfortable with when to pick it, different matchups, so on and so forth. Because you have to remember, I think, I'm a diamond level, right now high platinum, but last season, and I think still sort of my gameplay, at least for Janna, Sona, and, it's a handful of Zyra, the champions that I'm really good with, that I have a lot of practice with. I have a really high level of gameplay with them. But that doesn't mean that I can just go into the middle and play LeBlanc all of a sudden. So yeah, I'm a high plat, low diamond, whatever player for these certain Enchanter supports and Zyra, but that doesn't mean I can play anything, right? I'm a bad LeBlanc player. I'm probably a gold or silver level LeBlanc player because I have no experience on that champion. Why would I be good? I have no games on it. And I think a lot of people forget that. They think, okay, I got to platinum doing all this stuff, so I'm good at anything. I'm a platinum player at everything, or I'm a diamond level player at everything. False. You're a diamond level player at whatever got you to diamond. It seems simple, but it's very easy for people to lose track of that, okay? Just because you got there, one tricking Riven does not mean you can play Heimerdinger top at a top level, okay? So you need to keep playing champions that work for you. You need to dodge games that are heavily unfavorable. So you need to be patient. Sometimes there just might be 3 games in a row that you need to dodge. And I know people on the channel some people have questioned that. Should you be dodging that much? Yes. And a lot of players will be saying, dodge more games, because dodging does not affect your MMR. I have a whole video about dodging on the channel if you want to watch it, but you need to be dodging games. If it looks really bad, if you don't think you have, at least a 40% chance to win, you need to dodge that game. So if you have 2 losing lanes and you're going to get outscaled, you need to dodge, okay? So I know it sucks. It's not what people want to hear. It sucks having to wait 30 minutes for another game if you do multiple dodges in a day, but it's up to you. You just have to decide, do I just want to play a game, or do I want to professionalize and try to gain the most elo that I possibly can? It's a choice, okay? And that's part of this patience too. Do you want to play a huge variety of champions? Do you want to have a champion pool of 30 different champions that you're kind of okay at? Or do you want to have, a collection of maybe 5 champions that you're really good at? Okay, so you can gain a lot of elo. Sometimes that's not as fun, right? Some people love experimenting and playing different stuff, right? They don't always want to play Sona every game. They don't always want to play Xayah or Twitch every game, right? They want to try out different stuff. They want to have fun. I say, great, go do it in normals, right? If you're serious about professionalizing, like I said, Double likes playing Vayne. How often has he played Vayne this year? Probably close to 0. He may have snuck 1 game in there, but just because he loves to do it doesn't mean he can do it. Now, yes, his coach Parth is not going to let him do it, but at the same time, if he was really trying hard to get rank 1 in Challenger or whatever, he wouldn't play it most of the time, right? So it's not all about fun. It's not always about what you always want to do. It's about winning. And a lot of times that is fun. If you think winning's fun, which I do, that shouldn't be a problem. But if you like variety, then just play some normals, right? Just don't sacrifice your climb because you're not patient enough to play the champions that you are the best with in ranked, okay? So yeah, if you play 600 games as Trendemir, and you're like, man, I really want to play something else. I really want to play some LeBlanc, or man, I just really want to try out this new Ezreal jungle. Do it in normals. Don't ruin your ranking just because you're not patient enough to stick with the stuff that's winning. Just refresh yourself, play some other stuff, and then come back and play the stuff that you know you need to play to win. Okay, insight. So research as much as you can about the game. Think carefully about how you can improve. I've talked about that several times. Growth. Once you improve in some areas of your game, focus on others. Never stop searching for improvement. So never settle. Never think you know enough. Always be looking for, other new ways to improve your game. And then finally, consistency. And this is a huge thing. You need to play champions, and you need to develop a play style that is consistent, which means you get similar results from similar actions, because that gives you predictability. Okay, not for opponents, but predictability for yourself. So you say, you know what, if I'm going to play Janna in this matchup, I know I'm going to perform in this way because I know how this matchup works. I know the scaling. I know my team, and I'm very confident that, if I go this itemization path and I choose this strategy, I'm going to win this game because I've done it a lot and I know how it's going to work. Whereas if you're constantly just super aggressive all the time, you may not be able to spot why you're losing games. So you won't know what works and what doesn't work, right? So, maybe you get ganked, 3 or 4 times in lane and killed. And then in the late game, they just stomp you. You make some shot calls and they just stomp you, and you're not sure. You're like, well, did they win because it was a bad call, or did they win because they're just too far ahead? And how would that call be if they weren't as far ahead, if I hadn't fed my lane really hard? And then sometimes you might think, you might get just completely snowball your lane with really hard aggression, and then you're going to think, okay, I'm just completely steamrolling this matchup. This is so easy. I totally stomped this matchup. And then next time you try to play it, the lane's more even, and you're like, why am I not winning? I don't understand. I just went aggressive, and we didn't do as well as we did last time. It's because the situation's different, because you have such wildly different results every game, because you're inconsistent. Then you don't know how to predict. You don't know what your champion's really capable of. You don't know how it should perform in a game because you don't have a baseline. You don't know what the average is, what you're doing, because it's just up and down so much. So it's much better to play 10 games where you go 3-3-12 than to have 5 games where you go 6-3-18 and another 5 games where you go 3-6-6. All right. So yeah, that's. What's up, Chief?
Charger.
Can't have it.
I need it.
But I'm at 100%.
Yeah, I'm at 2%. Something's up with my phone.
That's wacky.
Whack.
That's whack.
Crack is whack.
So that's right. So you need to be consistent. That is the key. Just get consistent, and then you'll know what to adjust. You'll say, okay, I'm getting these consistent performances. I'm keeping my deaths under 3. I think we lost because of shot calling this time in this way, so I'm going to be able to change that next time. Or, I know I did these things in lane. They were probably small mistakes, but I could fix those, and that would help out. So the key is just stabilizing and just being consistent. Even though it's not going to be as exciting, probably, you're not going to get those pentakills, you're not going to get all this other crazy stuff, you're going to know how to improve better, and you're going to improve a lot faster by doing that. Because you're going to know what you're getting into. You're going to know what you need to do more, because the results are going to be much more predictable for you. Okay, so that's it. Professionalism and innovation are not mutually exclusive. Just because you're being consistent and you're trying to play like a professional, just to have that professional mentality that I mentioned right here, that doesn't mean you can't have fun. It doesn't mean you can't play innovative things. You can still try things out and have fun with the game. I'm just recommending that you highly do that in normal. If your goal is to gain elo, if you're just casual, whatever, play whatever, but don't be upset when you don't gain elo. Okay, so that's it for this video. So the concept of a meta slave is an illusion. It's propaganda created by both players who are looking for excuses rather than improving their critical thinking, and by sensationalist YouTubers who earn their living by creating this nice, fun, new, non-meta content, which is not bad. Once again, it's not bad, but it's giving people ammunition to remain ignorant in terms of critical thinking, or to not want to search out better ways to improve their critical thinking. So meta slave is an illusion. So don't think of it as being a meta slave. Think about it as professionalizing your play and really dedicating yourself to gaining a lot more points. And that's what you should be doing. Okay, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see everybody next time. Have a good day.